All right, welcome back. Some breaking news coming in. The India AI Impact Summit has wrapped up after a week filled with investment announcements, with the government releasing the New Delhi Declaration today, 21st of February, which was endorsed by 88 countries and international organizations, including major economies such as US and China. The declaration emphasizes AI's potential for global welfare, which will require international cooperation on human capital development, social empowerment, and economic growth through democratization and AI resources and boosting secure AI systems at that. My colleague Rumi Mishra will go through the entire declaration. Rumi, what does this declaration entail? And of course, this is a landmark moment.
Yes, Vineet, we have right in front of our screens the official AI Impact Summit Declaration, the New Delhi Declaration released by the Ministry of External Affairs. I'll read out the preamble for our viewers. It says it's inspired by the principle of Sarvajan Hitaya, Sarvajan Sukhaya, which basically means welfare for all, happiness of all. We believe that AI's promise is based realized only when its benefits are shared by humanity. We, the participants from countries and international organizations, gathered in New Delhi on 19th of February 2026 to hold the AI Impact Summit. The advent of AI marks an inflection point in the trajectory of technological evolution. The choices that we make today will shape the AI-enabled world that future generations will inherit. The first point that I can see right here is democratizing AI resources. Robust digital infrastructure and meaningful and affordable connectivity are prerequisites for deploying AI and unlocking its full potential. Inspired by the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which basically means the world is one family, we recognize the importance of enhancing the affordability and of access to AI resources that would be critical to enabling all countries to develop, adopt, and deploy AI for the benefit of their citizens. The second point here is economic growth and social good. A wide-scale adoption of AI and AI-based applications hold unprecedented potential that drive economic and social development. Open-source AI applications and other accessible AI approaches where appropriate and wide-scale diffusion of AI uses can contribute to scalability, replicability, and adaptability of AI systems across sectors. The third point is secure and trusted AI. Advancing secure, trustworthy, and robust AI is foundational to building trust and maximizing societal and economic benefits, noting that deepening our understanding of the potential security aspects remains important. We recognize the importance of security in AI systems, industry-led voluntary measures, and the adoption of technical solutions and appropriate policy frameworks that enable innovation while promoting the public interest through the AI's life cycle. Science is also an important part of this declaration. We recognize that removing structural barriers to and increasing availability to AI research infrastructure can promote the use of AI in scientific research and development across countries. International scientific collaborations can unlock the potential of AI in research and development by bringing unique expertise, perspectives, and resources. Access for social empowerment, human capital, resilience, innovation, and efficiency are all, of course, included in this joint declaration. I'll read out the conclusion. It reads that we acknowledge that the AI Impact Summit will contribute to strengthening international cooperation.
All right. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you for that elaboration. All right, well, the Supreme Court has ruled 6-3 on Donald Trump's sweeping tariff powers, and that ruling brings us to one core question tonight. For years, Donald Trump defended tariffs as a wealth generator for America. Well, that is the claim. Trillions of dollars, new investment. Well, we'll talk about that. Hello and welcome. You're watching Deep Dive. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and tonight we're asking the question Donald Trump himself has raised again and again. Did tariffs make America rich? We focus on the financial record, how much revenue actually came into the United States during the tariff years, what changed after 2018, and what do the official numbers tell us? Let's begin with where things stood before the trade war. Well, before 2018, tariff collections in the United States were relatively stable. For many years, the federal government collected between $30 and $35 billion annually in custom duties. That was the normal range, steady, predictable, and modest compared to total federal revenue. Then in 2018, US trade policy shifted dramatically. The Trump administration imposed sweeping tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of imported goods. China was the primary target, but tariffs also extended to Mexico, Canada, the European Union, and other trading partners. The financial impact was immediate. Annual tariff collections more than doubled. Revenue jumped from roughly $35 billion to over $70 billion annually. As additional rounds of tariffs were introduced and maintained, collections remained elevated. The upward trend continued over the following years compared to the pre-2018 baseline. By 2025, customs duties reached approximately $264 billion in a single fiscal year, one of the highest levels of tariff revenue in modern US history. When we look at cumulative collections from 2018 through 2025, tariff revenue adds up to well over $300 billion. That represents multiple years of expanded tariff enforcement. Now let's examine where that revenue came from. China accounted for the largest share of tariff collections because the scale of imports, electronics, machinery, industrial components, and consumer goods tariffs on Chinese products generated the biggest portion of total revenue. Mexico contributed a smaller but still meaningful share, particularly through tariffs on steel, aluminum, and manufactured goods tied to North American trade flows. Canada also accounted for a portion of collections, especially in metals and industrial inputs affected during the tariff period. India's share was smaller compared to China, but collections increased as tariff coverage expanded to chemicals, textiles, engineering goods, and auto components. While India was not the central focus of the trade war strategy, tariff revenue from Indian imports did rise during this period. Another important measure is the effective tariff rate. By the mid-2020s, the overall average tariff rate applied to imports had reached levels not seen in decades, reflecting how broad and extensive the tariff measures had become. So the financial structure in simple terms is this. Before 2018, annual tariff revenue stood at roughly $30 to $35 billion, and after the trade measures were introduced, collections moved above $70 billion annually. As policy expanded, yearly revenue climbed further. By 2025, customs duties reached around $264 billion in a single year, and cumulatively between 2018 and 2025, collections exceeded $300 billion. However, revenue alone does not tell the full economic story. Tariffs are paid by importers, typically American companies, which can pass costs to consumers. Some domestic industries benefited from protection, while others faced higher input costs. Trade patterns shifted, supply chains adjusted. Now, the Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling changes the legal authority behind some of these sweeping tariff measures. It places limits on how executive power may be used in future trade actions. But from a financial perspective, one pattern stands out clearly. Revenue from custom duties rose sharply after 2018. It reached record levels compared to previous decades, and it became a more visible component of federal collections during those years. The legal framework may now evolve. Trade policy may shift again, but the numbers from the tariff years remain part of the official record. Tariffs increased collections, they altered trade patterns, and they left a measurable financial impact on the United States economy. Well, let's talk about this. Joining us on the program is Mithali Nikore, economist. Mithali, appreciate you taking out the time and staying here with us. Well, what do you make of this rollback by the Supreme Court? Of course, everybody knew that whatever Donald Trump was doing was unconstitutional, but this also brings us or takes us back to the drawing board. Billions and billions of dollars have already been paid in tariffs. Are the Americans going to refund that? Because a lot of this tariff has been passed on to the end consumer in the United States as well. What kind of a potpourri are we looking at?
Thanks a lot for having me on the show. And honestly, this is a nightmare. This is going to unleash chaos and mayhem in the world of global trade. And if anybody says otherwise, they're not understanding the legal quagmire that.
What does it do to the stock market? I'm interested to know. What will it do to the stock market? It's already suffering.
Yeah, it will suffer, Vineet. I mean, to be very honest, I really don't know how much and how deep the suffering is going to be. but it will suffer for at least 1 week, and then maybe in a week when we have more clarity on the framework around how are things going to proceed, then I think the stock market will recover. But at this point in time, definitely there will be some short-term suffering, and then the recovery will happen. But very honestly, the basic issues are here. The first thing is, we don't know what is the actual tariff rate that is being applied. That's the first thing. The second thing is this 10%, whether it will be permitted or not permitted, by the Supreme Court or by the Congress, we don't know about, this additional duty that has been applied. The third thing is, we don't know who to deal with in the US, because you have the Supreme Court saying one thing, the government in power and the president saying another thing, and then the opposition coming in and saying a third thing. So we're completely confused, as the rest of the world is completely confused on what is the US position today on this, on this topic. And very honestly, I expect a lot of lawsuits to come in from exporters, from transnational exporters, from international organizations asking for refunds, and nobody has said anything in this judgment on refunds.
Mithali, what does this tell us? Has this been a case of overreach by an American president who perhaps does not or did not understand the economics of these tariffs? Because obviously, if a country is being allowed to charge so many tariffs for so many decades, there has to be a credible reason behind it. It doesn't mean that India or China, and for that matter, any other country, were out there to fleece or dupe the Americans.
Absolutely. And now, if you think about it, there was definitely no grounds. And if you remember, we were on your show just about a year ago in April 2025, when these ill-calculated tariffs were released in that, very memorable school or college-like, board that the president brought out in front of the press of the world, and showed these calculations which were absolutely flawed, and, propounded that the whole world should now come in and should, follow these tariffs. I mean, very honestly, even at that time, we knew there was no economic emergency, right? The act which was used at that time to justify the tariffs was the Economic Emergency Act, but there was no economic emergency.
Is this going to have an impact on the American economy?
Most definitely. It is incontrovertible that it will have an impact on the American economy in 3 ways. The first is, if as a country I'm planning to invest in the US, because I have now negotiated a trade deal which requires me to invest in the US, I may hold back on those investments now because I don't need that trade deal anymore. The tariffs themselves are illegal. The 10% tariff is minimal. The second is that if I'm an American company and I'm trying to import something, or if I'm trying to drum up consumer sentiment, it's at an all-time low. Consumers don't know what is going to happen to the prices of everyday goods. And the third issue is the entire cycle around the US dollar. This also shakes the faith of investors in the US dollar, and then makes the entire economy shaky because of the fact that you simply don't know of the uncertainty that's going to come in. So overall, it is going to create a very poor impact on the US economy in terms of consumer confidence, investor confidence, currency confidence.
Mithali, appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much for your time. We take a short break now. Be right back.
कार इंश्योरेंस डन।
पॉलिसी बाजार से कराया?
नहीं।
तो तू ज़ीब्रा नहीं हो सकता।
मतलब?
अगर पॉलिसी बाजार से कार इंश्योरेंस कंपेयर करके लेता तो 12,000 रुपए तक बचा सकता था। इसलिए तू ज़ीब्रा तो नहीं है, तू है
गधा।
काइंड ऑफ।
MDH कसूरी मेथी लाजवाब है।
स्वाद और सुगंध इसकी
लाजवाब है।
अगर MDH कसूरी मेथी नहीं डाला
तो खाली हाथ मलते रह जाओगे।
एक एक पत्ता हाथ से चुना, स्वाद और सुगंध जगाए कई गुना।
MDH का किचन किंग किचन में हो तो हम सब कुछ बना सकते हैं। बैंगन का भरता, आलू गोभी, भिंडी मसाला और भी बहुत कुछ।
MDH दादी के हाथों का जादू और खुशबू से महकता घर। MDH गरम मसाला, असली मसालों से भरा हूँ मैं,
क्योंकि हर रिश्ता है स्वाद से जुड़ा।
जो भी पके
ऐसा पके,
जहाँ भी हो जो
खींचा चलाए,
मीठी दिल हो या पुलियो गिरे, वांगी भात हो
प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी के नेतृत्व में प्रदूषण रहित देवी बसों के जरिए राजधानी के हर कोने तक पहुंच बढ़ाने में जुटी है दिल्ली की रेखा गुप्ता सरकार। दिल्ली का हर सपना होगा साकार।
3400 ईवी बसें हम दिल्ली की परिवहन व्यवस्था में जोड़ चुके हैं।
इलेक्ट्रिक बसें बढ़ा रही है अंतिम मील कनेक्टिविटी। महिलाओं के लिए पिंक सीटें होती हैं आरक्षित। पैनिक बटन और सीसीटीवी कैमरों से यात्रा होती है सुरक्षित।
अच्छी है बस भी, बस की क्वालिटी सब कुछ अच्छा है।
देवी बसें की सर्विस भी बहुत बढ़िया है, सही सफर कर लेता हूँ मैं।
पूरा होगा आसान सफर का वादा, प्रदूषण कम करने का इरादा।
Hello and welcome. You're watching Newsx Deep Dive. My name is Vineet Malhotra. Our focus today is a troubling twist in the aftermath of one of Canada's deadliest school shootings. A grim report first published by the Wall Street Journal revealed that an automated review system at OpenAI flagged disturbing conversations that the future mass shooter Jesse Van Roetselar was having with the company's flagship AI ChatGPT 8 months before the event. The revelation has thrown light to an emerging scenario where artificial intelligence may have seen warning signs long before the violence unfolded. So today, we take a closer look at what was known, what was flagged, and what questions remain about the role of AI technology in this tragedy. Let's begin with the incident. Jesse Van, an 18-year-old resident of Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, a small rural community, has been identified by Canadian authorities as the person behind the shooting that took place on the 10th of February. Roetselar carried out the deadly attack where she first shot dead her mother and half-brother at their home before going to the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where she randomly opened fire on students and staff. Canadian police say 8 people were killed in the shooting, including children and an educational assistant, and dozens were injured before she died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police had previously attended Van Roetselar's home on multiple occasions over the past several years, with some calls related to mental health concerns. She also previously held a valid gun license that had since lapsed. The attack was Canada's deadliest rampage since 2020, when a gunman in Nova Scotia killed 13 people and set fires that left another 9 people dead. Now, here's the central development that has turned focus back on the tragedy. In June of last year, approximately 8 months before the shooting, the company behind ChatGPT, OpenAI, internally flagged and banned a ChatGPT account associated with Van Roetselar. According to a spokeswoman for the company, automated safety systems and later manual review processes detected that the account had been misused in ways that could be related to violent activities or dangerous intent. As a result, the account was terminated for violating usage policies. Reports also state that the company debated whether to alert Canadian authorities about the troubling interactions, but ultimately decided against it as it did not meet the company's threshold for referral to law enforcement. Essentially, this means that the company believed that the interactions did not show imminent or credible planning of violence or serious physical harm to others. OpenAI says that decision was based on a policy standard intended to balance public safety with privacy rights and avoid unnecessary police involvement in cases where harm isn't clearly imminent. After the mass shooting occurred this month, however, the company says it did proactively contact the Royal Canadian Mounted Police with information about the account and use of ChatGPT to aid in the investigation. The sequence of events has sparked intense public and media attention, and the central question now is whether better or earlier action could have prevented this attack. So what exactly did the shooter do on ChatGPT? It's the big question. While the details of the actual chats have not been publicly revealed, reports suggest that the account was flagged for describing scenarios involving gun violence over the course of several days. OpenAI then banned the account for violating its usage policy and efforts for furtherance of violent activities. OpenAI said it trains its models to discourage users from committing real-world harm and routes conversations in which users express intent of harm to human reviewers, who are able to refer them to law enforcement in cases where they are found to pose an imminent risk of serious physical harm. Now, we know that Van Rootsela was already known to the local police before the shooting. Police had visited where she lived multiple times to handle mental health concerns and temporarily removed guns from the residence. The question that thus arises is, could the information of a conversation with the AI platform acted as timely information for a person already under authorities' radar? Well, following the shooter's identification, a specialized team of investigators has also been combing through her online activity and digital footprint for clues about the mass shooting, as well as reviewing her past interactions with police and mental health professionals. Some of Van Rootsela's digital footprint has already surfaced online. She had created a video game that simulated a mass shooting inside a shopping mall on online gaming platform Roblox. The simulation, which was never approved for distribution to casual gamers, allowed a Roblox character to pick up various weapons and shoot other characters in a mall. Archived social media posts show Van Rootsela posted pictures of herself shooting at gun range, claiming to have created a bullet cartridge using a 3D printer and engaged in online discussions about YouTube videos made by gun enthusiasts. As the investigation continues and authorities methodically review digital and physical evidence, the conversation about AI's role in preempting violent acts is likely to intensify. This incident has highlighted the enormous ethical and practical challenges at the crossroads of technology, safety, and human behavior. And as we have seen, the answers are neither simple nor clear-cut. For example, in another case in Florida, United States, a 13-year-old student's day took a turn when he logged onto a school device and typed a disturbing query into ChatGPT: "How to kill my friend in the middle of class?" Within minutes, an AI-powered school safety program called the flagged message and alerted authorities, while a school resource officer immediately confronted the student. The teenager allegedly told police that he was just joking around with his friend. Other examples include flags for threats in Lawrence, Kansas, which saw over 1,200 incidents in a 10-month period, including violence-related content, and Vancouver schools where hundreds were flagged for threats of violence. Online platforms have long debated how to balance questions of privacy for their users with public safety in their decisions to alert certain users to law enforcement. That debate is now coming for the AI companies that power the chatbots to which people are confiding the most intimate details of their private thoughts and lives. Let's get a perspective on this. Mr. Ritesh Bhatia, cybersecurity expert, is with us on the program to talk more about this. Ritesh, thank you for speaking with us. What do you think of this case? Is it too early for, put the blame on AI? Because obviously it needs a lot more data to figure out if somebody is going to have this kind of a predictable behavior. Or do you think there are clues and red flags already available in the system which could prevent people from getting killed?
Absolutely, Vineet. Firstly, thank you for having me on the show. Vineet, if you would have seen, we've already seen the kind of mess which has been there when the social media has been there, right from the time over there. So if we are not going to learn our lessons, as to what has happened on social media, I mean, there have been people have committed suicides or they've got rape threats and whatnot. Right, and again the authorities, or I would say rather the intermediaries, have never ever supported. They've just kind of blocked the accounts or banned the accounts, or at times they even haven't taken actions. Now, on the social media, what was happening at that point of time, the intermediaries could only know that, okay, what we like and what we don't like and other kind of things. But now with AI coming in, they also know what we think. You can just tell AI, what do you think about me? If you have spent a good amount of time on it, it is going to tell you everything about your personality and how do you even think as such. So I think, learning lessons from the social media kind of thing, what they should have done over here was that, okay, now that they know the human's mind also, their user's mind also, I think they should have taken an action. For example, in ChatGPT itself, the employees themselves flagged it out even to the management. The management said, no, it's way too early. I don't think so. It's them who need to decide that. What they should have done is that they should have reported it to the police that here is somebody with a wishful thinking. His psychological, this thing looks very, very disturbed as such. Maybe you would want to keep a watch. As you were telling on the show earlier, the police had already gone to her house and, confiscated certain guns and other kind of things. Probably this data today would have saved lives of many, Vinny.
All right. Well, Ritesh, do you think, just a quick answer to this query that I have, do you think that AI probably in the future will also help us profile criminals and, to a very little extent help solve crimes as well?
Oh yes, I mean, of course it would, and it is already doing that. Me being a cybercrime investigator, I know I have cracked like 5-6 cases which I couldn't have cracked earlier as such. So of course it would do that. But again, the question comes about, when we are talking about profiling, then we are also talking about privacy. Now, what happens about that? And that's the reason, Vinny, it's very important, that the governments of the world come together and they now define the frameworks for the AI governance.
Fair enough.
It's very, very important because
Fair
when
enough,
it is for the
Ritesh.
larger good.
Yeah,
it
fair
needs
enough,
to be
Ritesh.
taken
We've run out of time, but I appreciate your response and I appreciate you taking out the time as well. Thank you so much. We take a short break. Be right back.
कार इंश्योरेंस डन।
पॉलिसी बाजार से कराया?
नहीं।
तो तू ज़ीब्रा नहीं हो सकता। कार नई हो या पुरानी, पॉलिसी बाजार पे कंपेयर करके खरीदो और 30,000 तक बचाओ। इसलिए तू ज़ीब्रा तो नहीं है, तू है
गधा।
काइंड ऑफ।
आपके घर के खाने में रेस्टोरेंट जैसा स्वाद ले आए MDH का शाही पनीर मसाला। पनीर को क्या मस्त बना डाला।
सस्ते वाले दाल मसाले स्वाद हुआ बेकार। MDH की हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया करे कमाल। ये रंग दे, ये खुशबू दे, ये तीखा, ये कम पड़े। क्या निराला MDH मसाला।
समान नागरिक संहिता हमारी बेटियां, माता और बहनों के गरिमापूर्ण जीवन का आधार बने। यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड से लोकतंत्र की स्पिरिट को मजबूती मिलेगी, संविधान की भावना मजबूत होगी, किसी से भेदभाव नहीं, हर कोई बराबर।
प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की दूरदर्शी प्रेरणा और मुख्यमंत्री श्री पुष्कर सिंह धामी जी के सशक्त नेतृत्व में उत्तराखंड ने इतिहास रचते हुए देश का पहला राज्य बनने का गौरव प्राप्त किया, जहां समान नागरिक संहिता यानी यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड को प्रभावी रूप से लागू किया गया है। ये पहल राज्य में संवैधानिक मूल्यों को सुदृढ़ करते हुए समानता, सामाजिक समरसता और महिला सशक्तिकरण की दिशा में एक दूरदर्शी और प्रभावी कदम के रूप में स्थापित हुई है। इस ऐतिहासिक कानून के सफल क्रियान्वयन का 1 वर्ष पूर्ण होने पर उत्तराखंड सुशासन, समान अधिकार और जन विश्वास की उस यात्रा का उत्सव मना रहा है जो एक संकल्प से शुरू होकर अब एक व्यवस्था में परिवर्तित हो गई है। इस पहल की नींव मुख्यमंत्री श्री पुष्कर सिंह धामी जी द्वारा 12 फरवरी 2022 के राज्य विधानसभा चुनावों में जनता से किए गए उस ऐतिहासिक संकल्प से प्रारंभ हुई, जिसे पूरा करने की दिशा में 24 मार्च 2022 को नवगठित सरकार की प्रथम कैबिनेट बैठक में विशेषज्ञ समिति के गठन का निर्णय लिया गया। समिति ने प्रदेश भर में व्यापक संवाद करते हुए नागरिकों से लाखों सुझाव प्राप्त किए और 2 फरवरी 2024 को अपनी विस्तृत रिपोर्ट सरकार को प्रस्तुत की। इसके आधार पर 12 मार्च 2024 को UCC उत्तराखंड अधिनियम 2024 को विधिक स्वीकृति प्रदान की गई और 27 जनवरी 2025 को नियमावली के प्रभावी होने के साथ ये कानून प्रशासनिक और डिजिटल दोनों स्तरों पर पूर्णतः लागू हुआ। इस अधिनियम के अंतर्गत विवाह, वसीयत, तलाक, लिव इन रिलेशनशिप तथा विधिक उत्तराधिकारी घोषणाओं से संबंधित प्रावधानों में सभी नागरिकों के लिए समान और न्याय संगत व्यवस्था सुनिश्चित की गई है। साथ ही महिलाओं के अधिकारों और वरिष्ठ नागरिकों के हितों के संरक्षण पर विशेष ध्यान दिया गया है, जिससे इसकी सार्वभौमिक स्वीकार्यता, प्रशासनिक दक्षता और जन विश्वास को नई मजबूती मिली है। कानून के सफल क्रियान्वयन हेतु 10 दिनों से भी कम समय में 8,500 से अधिक अधिकारियों तथा 7,500 से अधिक कॉमन सर्विस सेंटर संचालकों को प्रशिक्षित किया गया है। इसके साथ ही सहायता एवं तकनीकी परामर्श के लिए राज्यव्यापी मॉक ड्रिल का सफल आयोजन किया गया। इसके परिणाम स्वरूप 1 वर्ष में राज्य पोर्टल पर लगभग 5 लाख आवेदन प्राप्त हुए, जिनमें से 96% का औसतन 5 दिनों से भी कम समय में निस्तारण हुआ। पंजीकरण की गति में उल्लेखनीय वृद्धि हुई है, जहां प्रतिदिन औसतन
1400 से अधिक पंजीकरण दर्ज किए जा रहे हैं। संवेदनशील एवं उत्तरदायी शासन का परिचय देते हुए सरकार ने जनता की आवश्यकताओं के अनुरूप नियमों में समय समय पर आवश्यक संशोधन भी किए, जिससे यूसीसी कानून को और अधिक समावेशी, व्यवहारिक तथा जनहितकारी स्वरूप प्रदान किया जा सके। विकसित भारत 2047 के विजन के अनुरूप विकसित उत्तराखंड की दिशा में समान नागरिक संहिता एक महत्वपूर्ण पहल है, जो समानता और न्याय को प्रशासनिक प्रक्रियाओं में व्यवस्थित रूप से समाहित कर रही है। समान नागरिक संहिता, समानता द्वारा समरसता।
All right, welcome back. Well, in a major sign of thaw between India and Bangladesh, Dhaka has resumed visa services in India. The Mohammad Yunus government had shut down visa services 2 months ago after ties had hit rock bottom due to attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh. PNP government in Bangladesh under the new Prime Minister Tariq Rahman has shown their intent in improving ties with India. What has also helped is the letter written by Prime Minister Modi to Mr. Rahman congratulating him and inviting him to India. It is likely that India reciprocates soon. Resuming visa services in Dhaka after more than 1 year, they were a shutdown. So is this the sign of things to come? Will India and Bangladesh and the relationship see a reset under the new regime is the big question. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the program is Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Major General Sudhakar Ji, senior geopolitical defense expert, Dr. S.K. Datta, international affairs expert, also joins us on the show. Mr. Shoaib Chaudhary, editor of Blitz. He's joining us all the way from Dhaka in Bangladesh. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'll begin with you. Simple question, perhaps not a very simple answer to that. Will this, in fact, be a positive step towards, reconciliation between these two nations? And do you think that the damage that Yunus tried to do is perhaps reconcilable, keeping the fact in mind that India has shown maturity in the face of this new regime?
Yes, indeed. I take a very positive approach to these positive changes emanating from the Bangladesh side, from the new Prime Minister. Let us not forget that Mohammad Yunus was closely allied with the Jamaat, which got 68 seats but could not get a majority. And the Jamaat was also trying to play with the students who actually got only a few seats which the Jamaat had allocated to them, 7 or 8 seats if I'm not mistaken. Under those circumstances, and the BNP, which is a major political party at grassroots level, and after all the new Prime Minister's father himself fought for the liberation of Bangladesh in the 71 war. He was a professional soldier. Therefore, he would have a completely different perspective on the events leading up to the liberation of Bangladesh. The fact that he went for what we call in Bengali the Ekushe, which is very, very important, which I'm sure Yunus would not have gone to, etc. Definitely indicates, very hopefully for India, the waning of the power and influence of Yunus, under whose interim regime India-Bangladesh ties went through the greatest crisis ever since Bangladesh was created. And all the steps that the new Prime Minister has taken indicate maturity, indicate the desire to carry all Bangladeshis with him, indicates his desire to be Prime Minister for all of Bangladesh, which includes minorities, and definitely indicates of the future warming up of ties between Bangladesh and India. Warming up, I would add, beneath from the rock bottom level, because under Yunus it had actually hit the rock bottom. It couldn't have gone any further below than what it was at. So I think that I would take this as a very positive step. You would recall that after the unfortunate death of an anti-Indian student leader, there were such virulent anti-Indian protests and Hindus being lynched as if we had killed this student leader, who was then laid to rest next to Nazrul Islam's grave, as if he was one of the founding fathers of Bangladesh. That was the extent to which Mahmoud Yunus tried to drag down the Indo-Bangladesh relationship. I have no idea where he is now, but I do hope that in the months to come, whatever is the future setup in Bangladesh, Yunus has no role to play, because all this was orchestrated by Yunus and his aides, and it was with a very clear objective of bringing in India's enemies into Bangladesh and completely sidelining and ruining the Indo-Bangladesh excellent relationship which prevailed at all times until Yunus came. So I take a very positive view on it.
All right. Dr. Datta, how do you look at this evolving situation? Let's not forget that the Jamaat at this point in time is also under control of a number of areas along the India-Bangladesh border. How is that likely to play a new kind of dynamic in this relationship?
Well, the fact that the Jamaat had won so many seats in the Indo-Bangladesh border, especially bordering West Bengal and Assam, that is a serious note, as well as for the intelligent forces, for the people who look after the border areas and those who map the border areas. And it is true that in West Bengal, all the communal problems and the troubles which get fomented every now and then, a large part of it has a connection with those areas in the border which borders in Bangladesh. So definitely this is something of a concern for us, and we have to be very cautious about this. I do welcome the stand of the new Prime Minister of Bangladesh, trying to reconcile and trying to, have a amicable kind of a relationship within India, because Bangladesh otherwise also doesn't have any other option, because Bangladesh is surrounded on three sides by Bharat, and Bangladesh is actually caged around the around the boundaries of Bharat. So definitely the Bangladesh doesn't have any option. Sooner or later, Bangladesh would have done this. It is very good that the former chief advisor of Bangladesh, Mohammad Yunus, has to he has abdicated power, and I think he had requested for a safe passage for himself and for his aide from the new administration to Europe, and as far as I understand, a safe passage was denied to him as well as to all his aides. So that also sets in a kind of a direction as to in which way the new government would be taking or would be handling the previous regime. It is also true that there has been serious allegation of corruption against Mohammad Yunus as well as all his advisors, and I think it would be appreciative if the new government initiates an inquiry in relation to all those. Yes, it is a mandate for BNP, and it is a brutal mandate, no doubt. But one has to also understand that the Awami League was not allowed to contest election. So that way only election in a way was rigged in favor of one party. There was no proper democratic fight as such, So that is something which the new regime has to handle in future, because Awami League is still very strong at the grassroots level, and the percentage of voting which had taken place in Bangladesh, hardly around 47%, that itself also speaks in volumes that a large part of the Bangladesh electorate did not participate in the election because of the absence of Awami League. That's something which needs to be noted. The Honorable Prime Minister of Bharat has written a letter to him requesting the new Prime Minister of Bangladesh to come over, and I believe the new Prime Minister of Bangladesh would be coming to New Delhi sooner or later, and that would actually, like solidify the ties in a much better way. My major concern is, of course, the security of the minority community, especially of the Buddhists, the Hindus, and the Christian community. Even during the pre-poll and post-poll violence, several Hindus were killed, several Hindu shops were looted, and many were brutally injured. So the new regime has to show, a teeth in handling the communal and the hardcore elements in the Jamaat, and needs to rein in those, because after all, it has to set in a new example to the global world that it is a democratic government, and it takes the concern of each and every caste, creed, and region of Bangladesh into consideration, and there is no bias as such. It is also true that Begum Khalida Zia, when she was the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, the mother of the present Prime Minister, the maximum violence had taken place that time against the minority community, and her regime was extremely anti-Hindu, anti-minority, anti-Buddhist as such, and there was a systematic ethnic cleansing which had taken place during her 10 years of rule. So with that kind of a legacy of the BNP of the past, and the fact that his mother had followed a very highly sectarian pro-Pakistan and a communal agenda, I am little skeptic. I'm little skeptic about how the new regime would handle things. If he does it in a democratic way and he shows his secular credentials in reality, the way he speaks about it, that would be a welcome sign. But if Bangladesh under the new regime toes in the line of China as well as Pakistan, and there are chances that the new regime might toe in the line, and if that happens, then this is something which could be of a long-term concern for our government and for Bharat, and we need to be very cautious about it. We are optimistic, but to be blindly optimistic about it is something which could be suicidal.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good summation, Dr. Datta, of the entire situation. General Sudhakarji, before I go to Shoaib Chaudhary, your thoughts on how India should approach this? We should learn from our history. The current Prime Minister's mother, was also in charge of Bangladesh, and at that time there were crimes against minorities. Is this, the same wine in a new bottle, or are we looking at a situation where Bangladesh is going to prioritize its growth, it's going to prioritize its economy, it's going to prioritize its neighbors, or is it going to continue with that, same old formula of ethnicity and majority-minority games?
Good evening, Vinit. Thank you for inviting me for your show. Taking the baton forward from optimism, being a military man, without meaning to sound as an alarmist, I would caution India that we must prepare and prevent. Otherwise, we may land up in repairing and repenting. Because the worst, whether it happens or not, if it doesn't happen, it's a welcome development, but that doesn't mean we are going to lower our guards. Having said that, now let me put things in the perspective as I understand. There are clear indications. I agree with the Ambassador ma'am, as also Dr. Datta. Initial signatures of the leader, that is Mr. Rahman, they suggest, and his body language also, it suggests, I'm an NLP expert, so I can say with a lot of optimism, they suggest a kind of a reconciliation and prioritization of his objectives. The objective is firstly to take stock. Initial couple of months, he will take stock, take everyone along, and as he gains confidence, perhaps because this is for the first time, his boots are into the election mandate and the responsibility that he has assured people. 2/3 majority is not a joke. His credibility will be at stake if he doesn't actually meet the aspiration of the people. I do agree what Dr. Datta said. A large percentage of people have not been included in the process of election or exercising their franchise. That is well taken. In any case, something is better than nothing. I'm trying to give the devil its due and bring in optimism in everything, but there is a caution which needs to be exercised. That caution is your centrality of your question is India's interest. When I look at it from India's interest, our sole interest, primary doctrine should be how can we facilitate or help Bangladesh to cede the space which Pakistan, China, USA, Turkey and Qatar have taken over from Bangladesh back to or in favor of India. This space has to be ceded back or taken over by India. It is a long haul. It is not going to happen overnight. Therefore, we need to look at the